Quickly erasing the memories of the 7-0 destruction, Manchester United, Erik ten Hag, Marcus Rashford, Bruno Fernandes, the Red Devils are through to the quarterfinals of the Europa League with an aggregate win of 5-1 against Real Betis and Manuel Pellegrini. Luis Miguel, Echegaray, ESPN FC, thank you so much for joining us live. Janusz, Michallik, my brother in the house. Janusz, initial reaction, Real Betis played better, but overall Manchester United took care of business in the first leg.
Yeah, I think they're just maintaining the momentum. Not an easy thing, right? I mean, Betis seems to be a good bounce for Manchester United after some disappointment. We saw that against Liverpool, and we saw that today after the disappointing draw against Southampton. Although, remember, they had to play 56 minutes with 10 men. So I think that's what you expect from a good team, a team that's still growing, but team that, as I've mentioned, Luis, has that a good momentum. Still in a fight for top four, of course. You look at the FA Cup coming up this weekend against Fulham. They're in that competition, one trophy in the bag already, and you know, this one, of course, they're going to be favorites in Europa League as well. So I think plenty to look forward to, even though it looked at times like a tired performance.
Yeah, definitely indeed. And we'll talk about that squad selection in a second. But as you said, Janusz, Manchester United already with the League Cup, still in the FA Cup, now in the quarterfinals of the Europa League, and of course in contention. I know, unrealistic, but still numerically in contention to win the Premier League. That's not going to happen, we don't think. But still, as you said, alive in all competitions. How about Marcus Rashford? Janusz, Michallik, unbelievable, 26 goals in all competitions. That passes Robert Lewandowski now, third amongst the players in Europe's top 5 leagues. Haaland with 39, Mbappe with 31, Marcus Rashford right there at number 3. How about this young man, Janusz, Michallik?
Well, he stayed consistent, and he stayed hungry, right? I mean, that game, if you forget the couple of the early chances, I think Juan Mi inches away, remember, early, and then I think Jose Perez. If you take that away, because Manchester United survived that, hit the post before the half, I mean, everything happened between 53rd and 56th minute. Remember that? I mean, Marcus Rashford had a couple of chances against Rui Silva on the counter, and then I'm trying to remember that, you know, great strike, and in between it was Jose Perez in the 54th minute that had a great chance. So the game was played in transition, but Marcus Rashford, 2 chances where he should have put away. I think, you know, he was pretty much one-on-one twice, didn't do it, and then 30 seconds later he comes up with this brilliant strike, because it really was all power, bottom corner, a bit of a daisy cutter as well. So here's a player that's, look, I mean, he's hot. What's that? Forgive my math, but I think 25 goals on the season in all competitions. I think something like that.
Yeah, so 26 in all competitions.
With this one, yeah. Maybe I didn't check I knew, I wasn't sure. It was 25 to 26. It doesn't matter. I mean,
you were close.
it's been a great season for him, and one that I think many United fans have been waiting for a long time, because it's been consistent.
Yeah, consistent indeed. And how about some more stats here? 19 goals in all club competitions since the end of the World Cup. That's the most from any player in Europe's top 5 leagues since Haaland, despite his 5-goal performance on Tuesday. That's how good Marcus Rashford has been. Here's a question from a fan, Janusz. We're getting the questions in. Thank you so much, everybody. Keep sending them in. But we saw the squad selection today from Ten Hag. They have another important match this weekend as well in the FA Cup, and the games will continue to go on. Rashford and Fernandes started. Should they have been rested? Does it show Ten Hag doesn't trust his squad, Janusz?
No, not at all. I think if anything, he trusts his squad, because remember that both Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes were playing on a yellow card, and that could have been even more significant, right? Because Casemiro won't play against Fulham in the FA Cup, but you wouldn't want him to miss the next match in Europa League. Bruno Fernandes, same thing. But I think when you win the first game 4-1, you have to trust your players, right? Because it's not like you're going to have to get into these tackles. You have a little bit of a cushion as well. So I don't think that's the case. Anthony, of course, was ill, so he went out the squad. Garnacho, as we've seen, he's going to be out for a while. So he could have. I think he wanted that momentum. I think he's recognized the fact that the players bounced after the game against Liverpool, and even the one against Southampton. He wanted to play. Look, I mean, you know that Benito Villamarin is not an easy place to go to. Betis are fifth and themselves fighting for a Champions League spot, just like Manchester United as well. And all it takes, I've mentioned those two chances early on. What if they go in? So I think it wasn't a statement of any kind. I think this is a manager that says, look, Casemiro and Bruno are inexperienced players. With the score 4-1, don't get into anything that could cost you getting a yellow card to be out of this particular competition.
I like the way you say Benito Villamarin, by the way. Shout out to your Spanish there, Janusz Michallik. I like it. It's good.
Learning with you. I'm telling you, we're going to be doing this in Spanish pretty soon. Get ready.
Let's do it. Get ready, ESPN Deportes, because here come your brothers. I love it. I love it. All right, well, these are the following fixtures for Manchester United, by the way. They got Fulham at home in the FA Cup. Newcastle away should be an intriguing one. Brentford at home, and then Everton at home. So Manchester United fans are looking at this squad, hoping that they remain settled and fresh. Let me ask you something, Janusz, because Erik ten Hag mentioned it in the press. It was kind of intriguing. Speaking specifically of Arsenal, it wasn't so much as an attack. It was just a slight of an observation. It was pretty intriguing, saying how Arsenal have had the luck of having a healthy squad, or the majority of a healthy squad for the entire season, and Manchester United have not. I'm not sure if Ten Hag has been keeping tabs on Arsenal's squad, but that hasn't necessarily been the case. What do you think in terms of that comment?
No, I don't think it was anything special towards Arsenal. I mean, obviously, you'd always want that on any given season. It can go the other way for you. I think in general, I think he was a little bit worried about his team because first and foremost, because I think I've mentioned a little bit that they look tired, physically probably and mentally as well, because I think he recognizes that playing Thursday, Sunday, it's not an easy thing. Arsenal have to do that as well, but obviously, they're not in all those trophies as well. And if you look at some of the key injuries that come in United's way, and if you consider, just think about that, because I had to look at that. I had to remind myself they've been playing against the likes of Barcelona a couple of times. Now you have Betis. Those are difficult matches. You have EFL Cup final against Newcastle. You have an FA Cup a game against West Ham. Then you have, obviously, Liverpool away from home. So I think, if I had to guess and trying to get into his head, when you look at the injuries and that cycle, Thursday, Sunday, which is totally different than Champions League cycle, maybe in a way he was a little bit worried of his team not being fresh and injuries not helping his team. But I don't think it was a dig at Arsenal. It was just stating the facts.
Well, you know me, I like to create a telenovela when maybe there isn't one. But all right, let's move on here. Let's focus on the Europa League for a second. Now that Manchester United in the quarterfinals, it's a big tournament, but as we have talked, they're also in the FA Cup, and they're also trying to remain in a top 4 spot in the Premier League for the Champions League next season as well. There's a lot going on. How do you, if you were the manager, Janusz, if you were Erik ten Hag and you're looking at the Europa League, obviously, would you see that as the next priority after the Premier League? Would you go all in on the Europa League at this point?
Well, I don't think managers do that as well, because first and foremost, as you've said, you've kind of look at week to week, not necessarily because that's what managers say, but with some of these injuries creeping up and maybe some players hitting a red zone there. I still think the Premier League, I mean, it's not done and dusted, right? It became a little bit tighter right now because of the points that Manchester United lost, Southampton and Liverpool. And you look at Newcastle now getting back in the winning ways. Spurs are pushing again. So, if you look at the points in the Premier League, I would have to imagine the Premier League is still a priority. Anything else is a bonus.
Yes, I would agree. I think as well, the Premier League, obviously the coveted trophy, the coveted journey for Manchester United and Erik ten Hag. We're sending all the questions in. Our friend Rob Dawson, who is a Benito Villamarin, he's trying to get some good Wi-Fi, but I think, Real Betis fans are stealing his laptop because he's a Manchester United reporter. But here's another question, by the way. This is a good one, I think. Over 2 legs, who are you taking, Janusz? Arsenal or Manchester United in the Europa League? Obviously, Arsenal still have to get the job done against Sporting Lisbon, but let's say they do. Who do you take here?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's a difficult one. let's wait till it happens and who's available. I think it's going to be a tight one as well. I think, look, Arsenal in the form they're in, I don't think they're afraid of anybody. I would, if anything, point towards maybe in the direction of some of the experienced players on Manchester United as well. And that's assuming, of course, that everybody's available, right? This is the assumption that we're going to make, since we're making an assumption that both are going to be still in that competition. So that experience for me is very, very important. In terms of hot players, they both have it. I mean, just look at Arsenal, and then you look at Rashford and everybody else. But, the likes of De Gea, the likes of Lisandro Martinez, Varane, and Casemiro, those are important points. I'm not saying that Arsenal don't have him, but it's still a much, much younger team.
Indeed. That's an average age of 24.7 for Arsenal. And obviously with the likes of Gabriel Jesus coming back to action, which he starts today, by the way, as well, want to make sure that he stays healthy. I believe Rob Dawson has fought back and stolen back his laptop and his work.
He's a fighter. He's a fighter.
I've made it.
He has made it. And look at that fighting beard. I love it. Rob Dawson, good to have you on, my friend. Great to see you. Tell me, initial reaction from this game. We were just talking about, the job was pretty much done in the first leg. Real Betis seemed to have played better today, but overall, a good performance from the Red Devils.
Yeah, a pretty professional European away performance, really. Real Betis were good at the start. That they had a great 10 minutes, had a couple of chances. That the atmosphere in the stadium was absolutely bouncing at that point. And if Real Betis had scored, you wondered whether it might make United a little bit nervous, and there might be something that could have built from there. But United weathered the storm a little bit, got to half time at 0-0. And then obviously Marcus Rashford is in the kind of form where he's able to produce moments of magic almost out of nothing at the moment. And that's what he did. And once that goal goes in, the tie is pretty much over. The game was really won, I suppose, at Old Trafford, winning 4-1. But if there was any doubt, the minute that goal goes in, it's all over. And a pretty professional European away performance from Man United and safely into the next round.
Rob, very quickly, just from the atmosphere, Benito Villamarin, obviously Janusz and I are talking about the game, watching it from a neutral perspective, but being in the stadium, Janusz made a good point about, how hostile this ground can be and how powerful and passionate these fans can be. But how did the players seem? Obviously, they've been on the end of some horrible losses as of late, but how did they seem? Did they seem comfortable, ready? Because obviously their schedule is pretty daunting, specifically an FA Cup match in a few days as well.
Yeah, it was interesting in terms of the atmosphere, because obviously, leading 4-1 from the first leg, you would expect Man United to go through fairly comfortable. But the atmosphere was so intense and so hostile, certainly for the opening sort of 10 and 15 minutes, that you did think that if Real Betis had got a goal, that you did wonder, whether, they score again very quickly and then all of a sudden there's only sort of one goal in it. And, these strange things happen in European ties like this. I thought it was pretty impressive from United, really, that they were able to weather that storm a little bit, because I say if they had buckled and a goal had gone in, there was every chance that maybe Real Betis could have scored a couple of very quick goals, and all of a sudden it's a very different night. The crowd come into it a lot more, and you're struggling a little bit. Really the credit goes to Man United, because whatever influence the crowd was having early on, they managed to negate that. And then the minute, as I say, that goal goes in from Marcus Rashford, then the crowd is removed as an influence, and the game is over. It would have been very interesting to see if Real Betis had scored early. They had a great chance after about sort of 7 or 8 minutes from Juanmi that was just rolled past the far post. If that had gone in, it could have been a very, very different night for Man United.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.